And we are recording. Hello, everyone. Erica Reddick here with Generally Irritable. I'm going to play my opening theme song. Normally, I start the theme song right as we start. Instead, I'm saying hello first. And now I'm going to play the theme song. Hopefully, you find it as wonderful and silly and delightful as I do. Yes. I love that eagle. I absolutely love it. Okay, everyone. Great addition today that we have for you here at Generally Irritable. I have invited two Vermont representatives to come chat with us about all the stuff that is going on in the Vermont legislature this season. So, I think many of you might remember that we were promised that this year's legislative session was going to focus on things that were COVID related, pandemic related, getting us out of the weeds, out of the trouble, and that this was going to be really like we're just going to hunker down and we're really going to help Vermonters. And I don't know about you, but so far I've seen a ton of stuff passing that has nothing to do with COVID relief, nothing to do with pandemic relief, nothing to do with improving our economy, but are in fact just the opposite. So please, everyone, would you help me welcome Representative Mark Higley and Representative Vicki Strong? They have given us some of their time today to share what they're seeing and kind of some of the bills that are either, kind of the most egregious or really have nothing to do with helping Vermonters, and ultimately, how some of these things are really going to affect us. So for those of you watching this episode, we are not live today. We pre-recorded this because I'm going to be at a fancy constitutional talk when this airs. I'm really, really excited about it. So unfortunately, you're not going to get to be able to ask the representatives your questions, but I am willing to bet that if you go ahead and put stuff in the chat, because I'm going to be watching it when it airs, I'm going to be here watching when it airs, but I'd be willing to bet if you ask some questions and you put them in the comments section, that Mark and Vicki are going to be willing to have a look at that. Is that okay if I call you Mark and Vicki?
Yes,
absolutely. Please. Okay. I always want to be respectful, Representative Higley, Representative Strong, but that is just a lot of syllables to say with my Invisalign braces retainer in. Like, I can't tell you how hard that is to say. Okay. So Mark and Vicki it is. So if you have questions, if there's anything crazy, definitely put it in the comment section. And I want to make sure I'm going to give both of you an opportunity to introduce yourself. If you would too, just make sure to let people know how they can get in touch with you, maybe an email address or something like that where they can reach you with questions. So we're gonna start with ladies first. Sorry, Mark, no offense. I'm a traditionalist. Okay, that is the one thing I will say, that moving to Texas was one of the best decisions I ever made. Because when I started learning what it was like to be treated like a lady and what that meant, that wasn't demeaning or harmful in any kind of a way, but it just meant that I got to be all my authentic self and that men would treat me with kindness and respect and dignity for that. I was like, oh, what? I'm going to go with this. We're going to do this. I'm all about it. So, Vicki, introduce yourself, the district that you represent, and then just give a little bit of maybe a background or history of what had you decide to run for office.
Oh, cool. Great. Thank you, Erica. And thanks for having me today, sharing this time with you. It's quite fun, actually. So I'm Vicki Strong. I live in Albany, Vermont. I ended up coming to Vermont many years ago to attend college and married a Vermont boy. At the time, I grew up in a liberal home and non-Christian home, and wouldn't you know it, I married a Republican and a Christian.
I just so you know, Vicki,
Yeah.
that is the same story that I have. Okay,
Oh,
please
cool.
continue. Please continue.
All right, great. So I had no intention ever of getting involved in politics. And in fact, I was quite educated through many years talking with my husband, seeing the common sense of being a Republican, a more conservative person, having conservative values and social values. And so over time, I really became very strongly pro-America and pro-freedom, pro-business, and saw that the atmosphere of Vermont was not moving in that direction. And my son, Jesse, middle son, at the age of 18, joined the Marine Corps. Hoorah! All my Marines out there. And even more, I became more patriotic and more appreciative of our freedom and what it costs us every day. And then sadly, Jesse was killed in Iraq.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. 16 years ago. And of course, your life comes to a screeching halt. And I just kind of threw my hands up in the air and I said, Lord, now what? How could there be anything good come out of such a loss? And over time, I actually, as I was healing, I saw Jesse's sacrifice for freedom. If he was willing to go to Iraq, couldn't I be willing to go to Montpelier and serve my constituents and serve my state? So my son, the loss of my son, of course, being very difficult, inspired me and inspires me every day to get up and say, I love my country and I love our freedom, and people have died for that. And we have to keep fighting for it every generation. And it's my turn to step up. So thankfully, someone asked me to run for office, and I took on that, first initial, I'll do it, and kind of got overwhelmed by that. But wouldn't you know it, I won. So I've been in the state house now for 11 years and served with Representative Higley. And that's been really helpful to have Mark there as a friend. We don't, as the crow flies, we don't live that far apart. And I've served on numerous committees, but right now I'm on agriculture and forestry.
That is amazing. Okay, I'm going to have so many questions for you. But I just love that you mentioned that if your son was willing to sacrifice his life for our freedoms, that the least you could do, or what you could do also, is go to Montpelier and represent your family and your neighbors. And I say to people all of the time, like when I was running for office, people would say, I'd ask friends or people that I knew that are unhappy with what's going on in Montpelier, hey, would you, volunteer for my campaign? Would you help me with flyers? And they said, oh, well, I'm scared. I'm scared about what people are going to say or this or that. And I go, oh my God, you know how many people have died so that you could just sit there and be scared? Like, if all I have to do is have some people, I almost said something rude. If all I have to do is let some people insult me and have my feelings hurt, I think that that's a sacrifice I can make. It's what I see really that is so troubling to me is that regular people have been scared into silence. They have been bullied into silence, and they fear for themselves and their families and their jobs if they stand up for what they believe. And I just think that's so scary,
It is scary.
And so I am so sorry for your loss, and what a beautiful gift that Jesse was able to be as an example of what it looks like to stand up for your country. I just think that's really beautiful. I love that.
He gives me courage every day. I get courage from my son.
Oh my God, I'm all emotional. You're going to make me cry. Okay. All right, Representative Higley, tell us about you, where you're from, and what had you decide to run for office.
Wow. Well, thanks, Erica. And I certainly appreciate all that you're doing. This is a great show. And
thank you.
So it's good to see it. So originally, I'm actually from the southern part of the state. I went into the service myself in the Seabees, which is Navy construction. went all over the world in a sense, doing different jobs, and came back to Vermont and married kind of a sweetheart in town, and always had a feeling of commitment to the community. I became a select board member down south, and then well, we actually adopted some sibling groups and moved north to the kingdom, which
Oh,
is really a lot more like where I originally grew up. The Brattleboro area is getting rather populated, and things are changing rapidly, and so we moved. And again, like I said, I've always been involved. I became a lister up here when I moved up here, so I've been a lister for I think 25 years now. And then 13 years ago, the same as Vicki. I mean, I just said, boy, you know, I would like to continue to see some true conservative values, at least expressed down in Montpelier, and I'd like to be the person to do it. So I ran, and fortunately got in and have been able to get elected for the past 13 years. So I certainly appreciate that. I sit on Government Operations Committee now again. I had been on Government Operations originally. Then I went to Ag and Forestry that Vicki's on. Did a couple of years at Energy and Technology. Now I'm back on Government Ops because I was involved with the last redistricting, and that's coming up again every 10 years because of the census. We have to go through a redistricting process. So I'm involved in that. And you had mentioned it early on, Erica, I believe, as far as you know, the pandemic and the issues around what we have to do down there now with Zooming. And I wish it was just pandemic related issues, but it's not. And one of the big reasons is it's so impersonal. You had talked originally about, can I call you Mark? Can I call you Vicki? Even in our committees now, we're still in the process of Representative Mark Higley. And to me, it's just, I don't know the other individuals on my committee like I should. I can't go down and have a coffee with them in the cafeteria. They're a foreign entity. And when you work like that, it's not the same. It's really not the same. And so I certainly miss that. And I hope we can get back to that sooner than later.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I can't hear you, Erica.
oh, well, how did that happen, for goodness sake? Okay, so thank you. So I think it's interesting that, you know, you're sharing, you also were, you know, that you were in the armed services. And it's interesting how many people who are either in, you know, who either served in the military, or they had family serve in the military, or they have family that are police officers or something like that. It almost seems like people who know someone personally who have served this country are more likely to be, you know, center or right of center politically. It's like, if you understand the cost, number one, if you understand the cost of what we have here with our freedoms, but also how unique the United States is. If you've, Mark, you can probably speak to this. You say you've traveled around the world. When you travel around the world, you realize how progressive the United States actually is compared to other places. Whether it's, you know, that, you know, by and large, I'm not saying there aren't homophobic people out there. Obviously there are, but you know, in many countries, it's illegal to be gay and you will be murdered for it. Like you can't get away with that in other countries, even in South America, you know, right across the border. So I just, it's almost like you get a unique perspective of what it costs and how unique we are here. Is that a reasonable assessment to make? Do you think, either of you?
Sure, for me, it certainly is, Erica. I mean, a country bumpkin from Vermont, heading out into the world. The first thing is you meet individuals, and I've got friends now that are friends to the death, all across the country. And like you said, I mean, I've been to Guam and done projects, Japan, Diego Garcia, stopped in Singapore, Thailand. I mean, you're right. You see what these other countries have to deal with, and their living conditions and their freedoms, and boy, it
Or
makes you
lack
come,
of.
yeah, or lack of, and it makes you come back and really appreciate what we have.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm getting all patriotic. Okay. Okay, so this is great. This is a really good start. I have really wondered what it's going to be like, or what it would be like with everybody on Zoom, and how depersonalized it is, because they've already done studies. Like, this isn't new. We're not making anything up, right? Like, they know scientifically that if we're detached from people, the more you're online and communicating with people through a keyboard, or just like you're on TV, we become disassociated with the real life ramifications, or the real life human being that's on the other side of that screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially with responsibility like you all have, where you have to cooperate with people that you probably, in some cases, vehemently disagree with, well, you still have to be able to see them as a human being and a person, so that you can treat them still with dignity and respect and all of that stuff. And so, if both of you would just share, like, just for a moment or just for a minute, how different your experience is this year versus previous years that you've served.
Mm-hmm.
Vicki, do you want to start?
Sure. I would say I feel like I'm flat-footed, and in the sense of, usually you're in a committee and all kinds of folks come in to testify, and they grab you outside of the committee or send you little notes. You ask questions of other committees and members in your caucus, or anyone on the House floor. What about this bill? And what is this part? So we're very flat-footed, really, and staring at a screen for 10 hours a day, or 12 like it was yesterday. You can't ask the questions you really want to ask, and really get the bigger picture. What will this bill do or not do? So and the public, I just feel so bad for the public, because emailing us or watching it on YouTube, and then like, quick email, what about this part of the bill? It just is, everyone feels, I think, flat-footed.
Oh, well, and I could just say, like, not to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm totally going to throw my representatives under the bus. I email my senators and representatives on a regular basis. And for as much as I dislike the actions or the things that Representative Odie, as much as I don't like what she focuses on and totally disagree and would vote opposite of her, she at least has enough care to respond to me that she doesn't care what I think. She doesn't say it like that. She does not say that. That's not what she says. But basically, that's what it is. It's like, okay, thanks for your input, but this is why I'm going to support it anyway. But at least she has the dignity to do that. None of the other representatives or senators write me back. And so it literally, like, short of stalking them at their home, which I'm not going to do, okay, not happening. I'm just like, I'm realizing all the things I'm saying are totally going to get me in trouble. Okay, so, like, short of stalking them at their house, how do I know that they're listening to me? Like, what are we to do to get their attention, to know that they actually even care that their constituents are writing to them? Like, is there anything we can do? That's a serious question. And then, Mark, I'm going to ask you about your experience. Am I missing something?
Again, go ahead, Vicki.
Well, I think it used to be you'd come to the State House and meet them, and in the hall say, hey.
Oh yeah, I totally harassed Chris Pearson and a couple of other ones about Convention of States. I went to the State House to bug them. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, or, phone calls. I mean, I've got my phone number in the bio book that you can look up online. So, and
Okay.
a lot of people don't though. They took that out last year because of the scary threat of, all that's going on. So, but it used to be, yep, most everybody had their not only their email address but their phone numbers as well, and maybe even a couple
Mm,
of phone numbers. So.
yep.
But
Oh
I've
my
kept mine
God.
in. Um,
Good. Well, and that just goes to show you. Okay. So then, Mark, how about you? Do you want to share a little bit about how it's been different for you or anything like that?
sure. So I agree with all of what Vicki said. Very frustrating process. The other thing that I'd like to interject though is because it's on YouTube, and I don't know if so many folks are really interested or they've got nothing better to do at this time, but they do listen in, and any little
Mm,
mistake that you make, or let's say I want to kid around with somebody in committee, which I'm the type that, and that's part of it. That's part of building a
yeah.
relationship, if you ask me. And I almost now have to, if I say anything, I have to say, Madam Chair, this is a public service announcement in advance of what I'm about to say, and then I'll say, I'll say a little ditty because I'm telling you, um, there is committee members, and I haven't flipped messed up yet, but there's been committee members that have gotten a message from the speaker saying we've gotten calls that you've said this off color, or maybe they've taken it wrong or whatever. And
Oh, yeah.
so to
Because there's no
me,
humor anymore, Mark. That is not
no,
allowed.
no, I
You
know,
didn't
and
get that
that's,
memo?
yeah, no. But again, that's the type of person that I am. Is I really feel that's a big part of me, and my personality, and getting to know people and breaking the ice. And when you can't do that, boy, it's a long day. Like
Oh,
Vicki
yeah.
says, 10-hour, 12-hour day staring there at a screen, not in just
No,
asking the
no
hard
bueno.
questions. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Well, just so you know, now that I know you're on government ops, I'm going to harass you about convention of states.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I've signed on to that resolution every year that I've been down there.
Yeah, me as well,
How do
Erica.
we get it
Yep.
off the wall? How do we get it
Yeah.
off the wall?
It's not going to come off, unfortunately, but we keep putting it on there.
Yeah.
Oh, makes me so. When I saw Samantha got into government ops, I was like, yes, I've got an inside person. And she was like, yeah, no, they're still focused on all this other nonsense. And I'm like, "Arr!" Okay. Anyway, I digress. Okay. So let's get into some of the nonsense. Like I said, I asked you guys here because I'm seeing stuff that not only is not COVID or pandemic related, but are ultimately really going to harm Vermonters. I'd like to just to start us off with the vaccine registry. Because when I read Guy Page's article, Vicki, that you and Brian Chena, Representative Chena, were on the floor arguing against it together, or not like together, but I was like, so you've got a very liberal representative, like wicked mega liberal.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian, I know each other from back in the day, and and I don't think he'll mind. Like, he DJs house music downtown. Like, I see him when I go out dancing at the bars in Burlington, right? And we'll talk politics, and we're very different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this very liberal representative, mega wicked liberal representative from Burlington, and then the pastor's wife Republican from the Northeast Kingdom
Yes.
arguing for the same thing or against the same thing.
Right.
And I just went, oh, it's a bad idea. Like, that means it's like the worst idea ever. So share a little bit about, if you could, what is that bill, the vaccine registry? How much is it going to violate HIPAA and all that other stuff?
All right. So
that might be, I don't want you to get too lost in it, but give like the 30,000 foot view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the this little part of the vaccine registry was thrown on a bill in the Senate that really, technically, you could say was related, but not really. But they had no testimony on it and just did it as an amendment on the Senate floor. So that came over to the House, and I thought it was going to be there a few days anyway, so I could do an amendment, etc. And the next thing I knew, they were announcing, oh, it's up for floor action.
So what, sorry to interrupt, what
Go
bill
ahead.
was it randomly attached to, just out of curiosity?
Mark, do you remember? It was in the health.
Was it even related?
Vaguely. It had to do with COVID things they were updating for COVID issues having to do with, telemedicine, that kind of thing, because people are doing more telemedicine now. So
okay, go ahead.
So technically you couldn't say it wasn't germane, but my problem was there was no testimony at all.
Wow.
So in the course of the whole process, I managed to get it deleted out of the bill. And it's a long story, I won't go into detail. But in the end, it was put back in and came back to the House. And so on the House floor, I wasn't going to have a food fight over it, but I just said, I voted no on the bill. Just a few of us, 5 of us voted no for that reason, and I gave a vote explanation. So my problem with the vaccine registry is that it's invading my privacy, whether I get vaccinated or not, that it's now going to be it is put into data. You have to opt out and know that you can do that if you don't want that information in there. So now our private, vaccines and such are going to be available through the data system. And meanwhile, we've had data breaches, as all of us know, like media medical. And the other question is, well, what can this be used for?
Yeah.
Why do they actually need that? If vaccines are, supposedly optional, I don't have to have a vaccine as an adult. Children seem to more. It's a huge question. And then the issue is, they're saying, oh, no, it's perfectly fine. It's so your doctor will know, you got your vaccine at CVS, blah, blah. And I just feel that that's an invasion in my privacy. I can tell my physician whether or not I'm vaccinated and why, and whose hands could this possibly get in? And then will it eventually make it a vaccine versus not vaccine culture, which we are seeing happening? And I'm very much against that.
Yeah.
And vaccine passports. So this is a passionate issue of mine. And I'm standing up for healthcare freedom in every possible way.
Well, and I love how my body, my choice only relates to the stuff that they think is important and not the stuff that everybody else thinks is important. Like, so you get to choose whether or not you have an abortion, but nobody else can choose what they want or not. And I hate the slippery slope argument comes up all the time. But when government tells you that they're doing something for your own good or for your protection, you should automatically be suspicious, number one. And what is this going to lead to down the road, right? Just like many people went along with the Patriot Act when it was passed because people were scared, people were fearful, and they said, oh, well, we need to do something, And then look at how it's been continuously what's that? What's the right word? Has to get voted back in. There's a word for it. Thank you. Yeah. There's something where it has to be like re-voted on every so often. And then they've expanded on it, and they've even gotten in trouble. Like the Obama administration got in trouble for spying on its own people, and then nothing happened. So I just think people should be really weary anytime the government wants your personal information.
Absolutely.
That's just my opinion. And a military man probably definitely knows that. But anyway, I'm sorry. What were you going to say, Vicki?
I just believe that we have to be very careful. And that's why Brian Sheena and I agreed. And he very much is against any kind of monitoring really, and I don't know if any kind, but a lot of types of monitoring that the government is doing. And he's very aware of that. And I appreciate that about Brian. He and I have connected on some pretty deep issues together because we're in agreement. Where does our freedom to go about and do our business end? How much are we being watched? And so we're both very much aware of that. And that's why we agreed on this issue.
Somebody was telling, oh, go ahead, Mark.
Erica, no, I just wanted to give Vicki a little kudos as well. She's been the sponsor of a number of bills, one in particular with, it's an individual's right to accept or refuse health or medication intervention. So, and it's amazing how you had talked about the convention of state government as far as why we can't get it off the wall. It's the same thing with these bills. I've gotten calls from, because I signed on as well, all over the state of people saying, "Oh, thank you so much for what are the odds that it's that it's going to pass?" And it's like there's not even an odds that it's going to be taken up. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's but Vicki's done a super job of putting together some of these amendments.
Well, and that's what is so important to me. I've been talking to a lot of folks recently that I know, like through 802 Freedom, Health Choice Vermont, Right to Life Vermont, all these different organizations. And what I say to them is, hey, we all individually have the things we're passionate about. There was the gal that I had on to fight human trafficking. And then I had Mary Beerworth about the Prop 5. And then, and then I had 802 Freedom on to share what they're doing. And then, of course, I love John, I'm going to say his name wrong, DeBruin, I think oh my God, my brain just farted. Oh my God. He's down in Southern Vermont. He's awesome. Does a lot with like 2A stuff. And Don't hate me, man. Don't hate me. I know you're going to watch this video later and I feel like a dummy, but anyway, if all of us, instead of spending our energy trying to convince elected officials who do not care what we care about, I'm not saying give up on, all of whatever your issue is. I'm not saying give up on protecting our 2A rights. But what I am saying is the people who are currently in office are never, ever, ever, ever going to care about our constitutional rights. And they demonstrate that year after year. And so if all of us just pooled our energy and either ran for office or volunteered for a candidate who was running for office and flip the legislature to all moderates and Republicans, we will actually be able to get some of our agenda done. We will actually get some of the things that we want. But we have to work together as a team. We have to collectivize all of that energy on one goal: getting moderates and conservatives elected. That's my 2 cents. That's my pitch.
We need your enthusiasm, Erica, for sure. And the problem is, or the problem that I see anyway, is with my constituents is they're out there working hard, and they really don't have the time to devote to watching us on YouTube or coming down to Montpelier. They reach out to me, and it's usually a selector group, and I know there's more. But it's a tough game.
Oh yeah.
For the minority.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Everybody listening, just register to support a candidate this year. Anyway, I've been telling people, if you're interested in running for office, if you even want to think about it, holler at me. I'll help coach you. I'll help you with your messaging. We'll have people to help you with a website and social media. Like, you just have to be willing to do it. Especially, oh my God, Burlington School Board. Good. Oh, I won't even get started. Okay. Okay. All right. So Mark, now one that I heard that I was really upset about, I want you to talk about. We started to talk about it before we went live or on air. And that is the contractor registry. So anybody, especially if you live in Burlington, anybody that lives in Burlington knows that it is impossible virtually to get a plumber, an electrician, a construction person, particularly one worth their salt, who's even willing to work in Burlington because it's such pain in the behind. So now they've created a registry for people. Is that right?
You're correct. The plumbers and electricians are already licensed, but they're licensed
Right.
through the Fire and Safety Division of the state. This would be
Right.
through Office of Professional Regulation. I've actually got a list here that might help people. So it's construction, renovations, repair, painting, paving, roofing, weatherization, installation or repair of heating, solar, electrical and plumbing, of course, but again, they're already licensed those, water and wastewater systems. So it's a bit of a group. It's based on, in a sense, a consumer complaint list that's generated through the Attorney General's office. It's been looked at a number of years now to either register or license. There's three variations. There's registration, certification, and licensure. The problem is, Erica, too, registration is really a form of licensure.
Yeah.
So you have to be current with all state and federal taxes, child support payments, you name it, to receive your registration. Now, OPR tells me that they're more than willing to work with individuals if they have an issue, but again, to me, it's a little bit of a roadblock. Getting back to that consumer complaint list, OPR had done what they call a sunrise review study, and it looks at these consumer complaints as well as having public hearings. Interestingly enough, at the first public hearing, there was one individual that showed up, and so they reached out, and I think there was a dozen at the second, and maybe as many as 20. But again, to me, this industry, especially the smaller construction outfits, aren't represented by a association or an industry group, and that's huge. When I know in this area, I don't know of anybody who's a member of the Home Builders and Remodelers Association or Associated General Contractors of Vermont, and that's a disadvantage when you're trying to get that word out. But I got some interesting statistics that I looked up, and when all this debate was going on, in a 5-year period, the Attorney General's office had talked about a $3.1 million consumer complaint list. Now that list is not an adjudicated list. It's basically you call up and make your complaint, and you're on the complaint list.
So when you say adjudicated for the audience, that means they haven't gone to court. There hasn't been somebody that verifies that this is actually a legitimate complaint. This is just self-reported people who were complaining or unhappy with the results they got.
Right.
Okay.
And you can get the list. I mean, it looks like this. This is it. I mean, it's maybe hard to see. Anyway, it's tiny, but here it is. It's got your name and your address on it and the amount of money that you supposedly had taken advantage of somebody for that amount of money. But again,
wow.
I had reached out to the tax department and asked them if they could come up with residential purchases for building materials and so on in that same 5-year period. And they did. They were able to break out 4 different categories of residential materials. And in that same 5-year period, there was $1.76 billion worth of materials purchased for residential construction like that.
I'm sorry. Did you say 1.6 billion with a B?
1.76 billion.
1.76 billion.
Yeah.
And 3 million was complained about.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Keep going.
And again, that 1.76 billion does not include labor. I mean, so I guess from my perspective, I need to look at what percentage of a problem are we talking about. And I don't begrudge, I mean, I know, I've known people that have been taken advantage of as well. But there is a process now that they are supposed to help mediate. The Attorney General's office is supposed to help mediate these smaller issues. If they're under $5,000, you can go to small claims court.
Right.
But to throw this all into this Office of Professional Regulation, anybody that does a job for $3,500, including labor and materials, has to register.
So that's everybody.
Well, pretty much. Because I tried to explain to people that even in the past pandemic year, materials have gone sky high.
Skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that what they don't realize is you guys talk about barriers to entry to the marketplace, and what they've done is create a barrier to entry into the marketplace. So it's not the, Farrells or the, not to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just thinking of who's a big construction company, or Polly's or Poly or whatever it's called. It's not going to be those people who are harmed by this. It's going to be Joe Schmo down the street, or it's going to be your kid who's graduating Burlington Technical Center with a trade. It's those people who want to be able to start their own business and get into the trades that now have a barrier to entry, higher cost, higher, all of that stuff.
One of the other things that's egregious to me was in that bill as well, and of course it has to go on to the Senate, and the governor has to sign on as well. But
so it hasn't passed yet.
No.
Oh, praise God. Okay, anybody listening, go right to your people.
Right. It's passed the House, but it's on to the Senate. So,
Okay.
But the Senate, I'm sure, is going to pass it. But the other thing in this bill, believe it or not, is a stipulation. So this is in statute now, that you have to have a written contract. Anything over $3,500 has to be in a written contract form. They spell out what has to be in it. I had asked Legislative Counsel, tell me any other regulated occupation in the state of Vermont that through statute requires a written contract, and the only other one is funeral directors. So again, I mean,
not even like lawyers and doctors and stuff. Like, really?
Not from the answer that I got. And I mean, I've been at this. I'm a contractor. Have been for 42 years, and I think I've maybe had 3 contracts because of blueprints, maybe. In that length of time, and most of the rest has been with either estimates, or if I work for people long enough, it's by word of mouth. I say, hey, the job looks like about $4,000. Let's go for that.
Okay, so now if you're a young person or anybody and you want to be a painter because you got good skills and whatever, now not only do you have to be on a registry, and we'll get to the green certification in a second, but now I got to hire an attorney to make me a contract template that I can use.
With OPR is going to have a template that you can use. So.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be really enforceable, whatever. Anyway, I just go, you are not for people. You are not for poor people. You are not for people when you put up roadblocks to being able to take care of yourself. Okay. I'm breathing. So what is the part, isn't there a green, like climate change certified or something? Isn't there some piece of this that has to do with that?
There's after the registration process. So the OPR is going to set up a certification process for green build, OSHA regulations. I'm sure there's going to be other things as well where you, take a course and pay a fee and get certified in whatever it is. And I think that's part of the initiative in this bill as well, is with all the talk about climate change and weatherization and all that. They want to get contractors all geared up to make sure that they know how to weatherize and all that sort of stuff. But
and that's, what does that even mean to be like green certified or whatever that is? Is it like, I mean, what do I got to reuse sheetrock? Does it mean I have to spin around 2 times on a Tuesday and then make sure I don't miss a piece of trash pickup? Or like, what does that even mean?
Well, I'm not sure what it means right now either. And there is, of course, out there already, the residential building energy standards. Some of the people want that to be inspected by state inspectors to go to that extent. But here we get into, if you ask me again, rural versus urban. I mean, my folks up here, half the time they say, hey, Mark, I went on to Craigslist. I've got these windows. Can you install them for me? And I said this in committee. I said, what am I supposed to tell these folks? That I can't do it? And they, the answer was kind of like, well, they need to be their own contractor then.
Well, and then it's like one of the things that I found so interesting is, as an example, Burlington just banned gas-powered leaf blowers. So let's just say everybody actually complies with that. Funny enough, they're illegal in Los Angeles as well, and everybody uses them in Los Angeles anyway because there's no enforcement arm. And it's such a big city. What are they going to do? Like have extra cops that go out looking for landscaping people to harass? But anyway, I digress. So they banned gas-powered leaf blowers. So do you want me to put it in the trash? Are we going to fill up the landfill with everybody's perfectly functioning gas-powered leaf blowers in order to replace them with electric leaf blowers? That is not taking into consideration the waste, the reuse factor, whether or not they actually do the job that they can do. Like it just sounds good and doesn't take into consideration the second and third order effects of the decision. And it sounds like this is what that contractor registry is also doing.
Yeah, I mean, again, for an individual just starting out, I believe it's going to be a detriment. They say it's a light touch, but again, it all depends on how tough they want to be. I mean, if somebody does have behind in child support, supposedly they can't register.
Yeah, guess what? You're behind in child support. So what we really need for you to do is to make money so you can pay it. But we're going to get in the way of you making money to pay it.
I know.
Brilliant. No, go get a job.
Right.
Working at the. Oh, okay. I'm done. Okay. Okay. So what else? So we know, or I should say, I know, as an example, there have been bills to restrict gun purchases. And carry where guns can be carried. There have been bills to limit trapping and some infringing on hunting stuff, like not using dogs or they have to be on a leash or whatever, which is like that defeats the purpose of the dog, but whatever. So there's definitely, I've seen some infringements on our constitutional rights going through, but are there any others in particular that either of you are like, oh, everybody needs to know this? And it's either already passed and here's how it's going to be terrible and affect everybody, or here's something that's coming up and everybody needs to write to their representatives.
I would say this year, because of COVID and the remoteness of our meeting, that a lot of those things are talked about, but I haven't seen, Mark, have you seen any come forward really? Thankfully, the governor has said he won't support any more gun laws.
Really?
So, yes. He's kind of like, boom, done with that. So that's keeping those bills more on the wall.
Oh, good.
The bear hunting with hounds and such is being really talked about, and I get emails, but I don't seen it go forward. Have you, Mark?
Okay.
They are taking testimony on it in committee, I guess, but
yeah,
I don't know how far it's going to get this year for sure.
Okay.
I hope not. I just think we're not ready to debate these things on Zoom, and that's one of the key factors about Zoom is it's just not an appropriate format. So I think mostly the legislature is obsessed with all the federal money that's supposedly rescuing us from COVID problems. So they shut our economies down. They shut our lives down. And then now we have to have millions, if not billions of dollars to fill all these gaps. The poor farmers are having to not be able to sell their milk because the restaurants are closed and the schools are closed, last March through spring last year.
God.
And, and they're like, how do we pay our bills? So we have a lot of COVID money that we've been dealing with, and now another wave of ARPA money. And so my concern is we're setting up, not setting up programs as much as boosting them with this federal money. And yet, will we get that money?
Yeah.
I mean, or who's
So-
paying for it? Who's paying for it?
Well, right. And this is what I always say, like, when we say that we're getting federal money, what you're really saying is Vermont can't take care of itself and we need daddy federal government to come rescue us. So for some reason, the people in Texas and the people in Florida or Ohio, they're responsible for paying our bills. So we can't be responsible with our own checking account and our own budget to the point where we have to go beg for money from other states. And I just find that I don't understand where that mindset comes from, that we, rather than being responsible for ourselves, feel entitled to other people's money.
I think there's a disconnect in people's minds, literally, from this money is free somehow. It just somehow, boom, it comes down. And they're like talking about grants all the time and loans that will be forgiven. And now businesses and farmers are coming in. Well, I need this money to do this such and such, and I need grants. I'm like, who's paying for that?
Well, and the color of your skin decides who gets the money first. I remember last year I applied for one of the business grants. I'm not sure what that background noise is, but it is intense.
It's
Somebody
Mark's
doing.
dog.
I'm like, is somebody doing construction in one of y'all's houses?
Is that your
What?
dog, Mark?
What is
Oh.
that?
Is that your dog?
What does it sound like? Because I don't hear it.
It sounds like
Sounds like a dog.
somebody like slamming stuff
Yeah,
around.
It might be. Hang on.
Okay. That's what I'm like. Am I going crazy? You don't realize what your microphone picks up
Right.
in the background. You think that it's fine and you can't really hear it, or it's
Yeah.
soft, but the microphone is like.
I think it is. I think it's my new puppy who's under the table scratching, and so I've got my boy removing the puppy.
Okay, good. Okay, so when I applied for the business grant in Vermont, my counterparts couldn't apply for it. You had to be a woman or a person of color. So we're prioritizing we're discriminating against white people, white men specifically, which if you do the math and you figure that 96% of Vermont is white and then 50-50 on the gender, that means you're literally discriminating against 50% of your population, pretty much. Like 40, I can't do math, 48% of your population. Don't tell anybody I'm an accountant and I couldn't do math in my head for a second. But so we're discriminating against people. So we're getting this fake money, because to me, it really is fake money, Vicki. Like you said, we haven't gotten it yet. So we're spending money before we get it, but it's not even real money. It's something that the Federal Reserve has either printed. Most of it is money that the Reserve has printed, or it's being borrowed from countries like China. So it's not even our money. It's just fake money. And
Right.
so if you would, my understanding is, rather than a lot of that money going directly to Vermonters to compensate them for the state of Vermont shutting them down, because at this point, it's not the federal government anymore, right? We're basically free and open in Texas. Everybody's free to do what they want. There's no restrictions. Vermont still has restrictions. So instead of the state of Vermont taking this money and compensating the businesses that they've destroyed and the citizens who they've harmed, they're using it to plug gaps in the budget that they created over the last several years. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say and Mark, you help chime in on this. I would say they're investing the money, so to speak. The word is invest in infrastructure, so to speak. So whether it's early childhood education, broadband, What else, Mark? Transportation, like bridges and
Well,
roads?
there's, money for the homeless, I think it was $50 million to get the homeless out of the hotels and motels. Affordable housing, another 50 million. Yeah, so, there's a lot of money out there, and my concern as well is, and they say they're considering this, appropriations committee, to make sure that it's money, kind of one-time money that's not gonna be expected to eat into the general fund going forward. But I have a sneaking suspicion that all these groups where all this money is going, like Vicki says, is, you can't tell me that they're not gonna be back at us
Right.
3 years down the road when this money runs out, saying, hey, what about more money for the homeless? What about more money for uh, free meals for all school children? I mean,
Right.
the list goes on. But
Well, and so, okay, so a few things that are coming to my mind. First of all, $50 million to build affordable housing to house the homeless. First of all, oh my God, there's so much to tear apart in that. There was a study done not that long ago, and one of you might be able to correct me. I believe it said it costs something like $800,000 to build one affordable housing unit in the state of Vermont. So, is that right?
well, it's around $500 a square foot. So, which is pretty amazing when most other construction is much less than that. But
wait, where's my calculator? Hold on. Oh, wait, where's my mouse? Okay, hold on.
so yeah, try to do that for a 1,200 square foot, small apartment.
That's what I'm trying to think of. Like my husband and I's last little apartment was 800 square feet. It was a 2-bedroom. It was not the smallest. We had a roommate. It was tight. 800 square feet times, you said $500 a square foot.
Yeah.
So our little 800 square foot apartment would cost almost $500,000 to build. And it's not like it's being done with like marble and granite.
Well, of course, they relate this to, that's, you can look at some of these, whether it's Montpelier projects or whatever, that maybe renovating even an older building, and it includes the permitting fees, just on and on and on. So, but it is pretty amazing, the actual cost of this so-called affordable housing. I mean, it's going to be affordable to folks in the end, but as far as actual costs.
Well, and one of the things I find so frustrating about that argument in particular is I particularly have a big heart for homeless, mentally ill, drug addicted folks. I share all the time. I celebrated 12 years sober this year. So I'm really grateful for that. And so I have a big heart because I was on that cliff, and I've had many of my friends on that cliff and either fall off the other side or come back from it. But what they don't understand is that people who are homeless, many of them are choosing to be homeless because we have so many charities, churches, and other organizations that are more than willing to put people up, get them housing, help them with first month's rent. I even cooperate with a couple of organizations in Burlington for my 2 rental units. Hey, if you've got somebody graduating from your program that's ready to be on their own and wants to get a place, I'm totally willing to work with you on that. So a lot of the people that you see still on the street are still on the street because they want to be able to keep doing drugs or keep drinking or keep behaving in a way that makes it so they can't be in a homeless shelter or in these other programs. So, and we've seen that, like if you talk to, especially in Burlington, I don't know what you've seen in your neck of the woods, but what BPD, what Burlington Police Department had to go through when we were housing some of these folks in hotels and other areas around here, it basically became a place where they could all do drugs. People were being sexually assaulted. People were dying of drug overdoses. It was just like turning into this chaos. So what is that $50 million going to go towards, really? Like, what are they really going to do with it?
Well, I'm on the board.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Vicki.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm on the board of Rural Edge, which is a affordable housing organization here in the Northeast Kingdom. And we do have a bit of a homeless problem, nothing like an urban area, but they're going to buy some older buildings that are more or less empty, just been on the market, low price, and rehab them into units. So they're taking out folks from a motel, which of course is pretty dreadful housing, and housing them in these small units that have been rehabbed, and then they're going to have services in the building for helping them get jobs, get to health care.
Really?
Yeah, so it's more of a now on-site services, which helps monitor the behaviors happening, and then actually helps them get to help, get them training, and just get them try to help them have a life, that's actually worth living.
That sounds like, now, is that state funded and run?
Yes.
Or is that really?
Well, through numerous funding sources, like Mark's heard about VHCB and some other programs where the money's coming into them, and then you have to apply for this money and do what you say you're going to do with it. But it is being used. These housing units, they turn into very, really pleasant units that make people feel proud to be there.
Okay, but it's not technically state run. It's run by other folks using money, grant money.
Yes.
See, now that kind of thing I can get behind.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. If you told me that they set aside $50 million for organizations like that, who are in it, and the people that work there probably actually care to be there. It's not just some government bureaucrat.
That's exactly right.
Right? That's like A New Place in Burlington. Kevin Pounds runs this place. It's called A New Place.
Right.
And it's similar to that, where they've got folks living on in the house, and then they bring like trainers and people and sponsors and community members to come help people get back on their feet.
Yes.
So it's still community centered.
Right. And you have places like in Burlington, like the Howard Center. You probably know of that. The really good folks work there, and they work every day with people who they help get off of drugs and all kinds of get mental health help. And there's sad stories of when those folks don't make it. But I see in Vermont, a small state, we just really do care.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure there's instances where you feel like there was government waste, but I know that on the board of this group I work for, they work hard to get that funding, and they hire local people, and they help local people get affordable homes and units to live in.
See, and that's, again, that is what I want to see. I want to see the government, if you want to help people, make it easier for people to help people. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I know, because I think last year there was a lot of work done to make it easier to start like sober houses and stuff like that, right? Are either of you familiar with that? I remember hearing about it. Like, not that they loosened the regulations, that's not the right way to put it, but my understanding is they made it easier for people to start sober houses or something like that, just so that there would be more opportunities for people. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so I totally went off on a tangent on that $50 million because I just think the government sucks at everything. I really do. Like, bureaucrats do not have the ability to have compassion in the way that they need to down in the dirt with people. Like, when you got people who are really sick and suffering, I don't need my legislator to be like, I'm for you. I need somebody to get in the dirt with me and love me until I can love myself. And it's got to be a human being who does that, not the government.
That's
It's just
right.
that's my 2 cents.
And that's the
Okay.
responsibility. That's the responsibility of families and of the church. And the government keeps taking that away from families and local groups and local churches, so that now we expect the government to do it for us, and they'll never do it as well as families, friends, churches, local groups.
Yep.
So
Oh my God. Okay. So how much money are we getting from this, from what is it? The American Recovery Plan Act. How much money is Vermont actually getting for that? Do you know?
yeah, Mark, what is that?
Oh.
1.6 billion? What is it?
Yeah, I thought it was 1.9 billion, and it's even more than that if you count what's coming individually to counties and towns, and I think it's over $2 billion.
Unemployment.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
For a state of 500,000 people. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay. $2 billion. And okay, so we know, or I should say, I've heard that some of that is going to plug the pension deficit.
It can't, Erica.
Mhm.
It's not allowed to do that.
Really?
Now, right. There's other ways around it, to find something in the general fund that is covered by the federal money,
And then just move the money around.
and then move the money around.
Slick.
Because
Very
we've got
slick.
150 million set aside right now to inject into the issue of the pension.
So all we have to do is take that 150 million from somewhere else, like the legislature likes to do. It seems like rob from Peter to pay Paul. So we're going to take some money from somewhere else and plug it in there. Oh, this makes me so incensed. So, and I also heard that the legislature isn't even going to deal with the pension stuff this year. So we're going to plug this hole with a drop in the bucket compared to what we owe it. And then, but we're still not going to address the fact that it's, defined benefit and how that's bankrupting us. We're not going to change the expected yield because 7.5% is unreasonable. They're not going to fix any of that still this year. Is that right?
That's right. So that's in my committee. We've created a task force that's going to start meeting. Well, this hasn't been passed through the Senate as well. It hasn't even been on the floor yet, but
the idea is
the task force is going to meet June 15th and finish up their work by September 1st. They've got quite an extensive charge as to what to look at to kind of right size the pension going forward. My personal belief, and I've talked to some folks from the Reason Foundation. It's kind of a pension geek group out of California and Arizona. I guess they're all over, but they've been working with other states. A lot of states are going to a hybrid system. I think you might have mentioned it. It's a defined benefit plan right now for the teachers and the state employees. And this hybrid plan would look at maybe new employees going forward with a contribution plan, which, as long as it's a good plan, good benefits, and it's sustainable for the state, it does have some advantages around. You don't have to be vested, of course. If you leave your job, you take what you got. There's you can invest in what you want. A lot of people are claiming, oh, we need to. I remember years back, wanted the treasurer to take out all the investments in fossil fuel industry, and that was some of the bigger investments coming in. So anyway,
yeah. Which was dumb considering how well the energy sector was doing before the pandemic. But then we might have actually made 7.5%. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So you're right. We're not going to hear back from them until September, and we won't act on it again until next session.
Next session. Okay. So we're just going to kick it down the can again, or kick the can down the road again. Okay. So what else is that $2 billion going to go towards from the feds?
Well, a lot of it, I'll just mention one or two things, Mark, and you mentioned a few. Broadband, trying to get people connected in the very rural areas. A lot of it is being invested in that. And go ahead,
What
Mark.
is
What else?
what does that mean? Do you know what that means? Like, are they going to put up towers or lines or?
Well, Mark, you were on the committee just last session, but toward this these groups, CUDs, they're called, right, Mark? Is that
Right.
right?
Communication union districts is where
Okay.
a lot of the money is going to go.
Oh, interesting. This is the first time I've heard of this.
Oh, wow.
Communication Union District.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's kind of just like a water district, a municipal water district. It's
Okay.
set up the same way. Supposedly, towns won't be on the hook for any of the losses if there happen to be that. You know what happened in Burlington Telecom.
Burlington Telecom. That's what I was like. When you said that, I went, oh my God, it's Burlington Telecom all over again. But anyway, please continue.
Well, there are success stories out there already, but one of the larger ones is the Northeast Kingdom Communications Union District, set up, and that each town has a representative on that. This money is going to go to these folks to put up fiber because they believe they call fiber future-proof. It's they're looking at 100 over 100. If you are familiar with speeds at all, so
yeah, a little bit.
Yep, 100 download,
So 100 megabits.
Yeah,
download 100 megabits. Upload.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, though, Erica, one of the things that it's kind of I think is going to come into play a little bit is these Starlink. The satellite out there that Elon Musk is putting up into the into space.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of folks, well, not a lot, but I know I have heard from folks that if you're in a relatively open area, they are able to get it. I think
on cloudy days.
Well, I believe so. I think it has more to do with whether you're in the mountain area and a lot of trees and all that sort of stuff. But
okay.
yeah, it's about it's a little more expensive.
Yeah.
But anyway, who knows where that's going to go? But
well, because I know even here in Texas, our place here is only an hour outside of Austin, and our internet is trash. And I shouldn't say that. It's just not great. And then you go another 20 minutes north to some of the other towns where we were looking at buying property. And in like Belton and stuff like that, they basically don't have internet, and they have to get those little, I have one, where is it? The little jet packs, and use cellular data instead of cable or satellite, because it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so fascinating. But this is one of those things where you said, okay, this money is supposed to be going towards one-time use, right? So that it's not supporting stuff that needs money ongoing. But infrastructure like broadband is going to have to continuously be upgraded. Is the idea that once you get people set up on it, it's going to pay for itself?
Yes. Right. So once they do the poll surveys, once they start stringing lines, once they start getting customers, supposedly, they're going to eventually come into a little bit of profit and continue to be able to build out. So that's the business concept.
Fascinating. Well, I will say, just in case it matters, I know Burlington Telecom, now that they are, first of all, they're totally in the black now. Once they got rid of the shackles of being a city department, they're now profitable, and they're looking at expanding. And so if it means anything at all, let me know, and I can hook you up with the guy who's in charge over there about possibly helping with that, because I know that they would do it, and they're awesome, and I really like their staff. And also the internet in Burlington is legit. I have Burlington Telecom in my house. It is really, really good. I miss it.
Erica, I just want to clear up one thing.
Yeah.
Just went online and found out the total amount coming to Vermont is 2.7 billion.
Mm.
What? Oh, good Lord, help us. Okay, we gotta find out more. Okay, so broadband, childcare, that's another thing. First of all, the Vermont legislature has made it harder and they restricted people's ability to start childcare centers. They made it so regular people I can't just be my own little childcare center and take care of my kid and then the neighbor's kids. Now I got to be all this. I talk about barriers to entry. So they've actually shrank and limited people's ability to do childcare. So now they want to put more money into it. Have they said what that money is going to go toward for early childcare? Because that is definitely something that sounds like it's going to be ongoing money that's going to be needed.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the bill was about a study, a work group. Is that right, Mark? To
Yes.
find what the needs are, what part of the states, and how it could be provided. What else was in it?
Well, there was 5.5 million into subsidies, 1.8 million for student loan for folks that go into the childcare industry, $700,000 for scholarships, 4.5 million for an IT upgrade at DCF. I think it was a total of 13.3 million going into that particular childcare. The one concern for me was there's a provision in there that talked about. Fortunately, I believe it's in the study, Vicki. Let me know if I'm wrong, but where by the year 2025, no Vermont family will pay more than 10% of their household income for childcare.
Right.
And that raised some red flags for me because I believe DCF said that could be to the tune of $500 million a year. I mean, I guess there was a range there, but that was one of the concerns for me is, wow, how are we going to go forward with this? Where's that money going to come?
That's so what if crazy idea. You guys are going to think I'm crazy. Are you ready?
Sure.
What if we just made decisions that made it less expensive to live in Vermont so that people didn't have to have a 2-income household so that one of the parents could stay home and take care of the kids?
Wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, that's what I did raising our children. And it was almost like we had to take a vow of poverty to do it. And, we're still going to pay it off. My kids are 42 and 38. And that's the hard thing. My son is trying to raise their little ones now on one income because he wants his wife to be home. He wants her to homeschool. And in a way, it discriminates against those kind of families.
It really does. It really, really does.
And I don't know. I can see legitimate needs for childcare for sure. But when we look at our whole K through 12 and college, we're not doing a good job paying for that now. We're way over the highest education costs in the country.
Yep.
And then we're talking about adding the early childhood when we haven't figured out the other, and our colleges are in crisis. So how does this make sense? I'm not real sure.
Well, and it's almost like this is what is so astounding to me is we all want, I shouldn't say we all, because there are some crazy people out there, right? But by and large, we all want everyone to be happy and healthy and safe and to have access to services and goods that they need and to be able to take care of their families and their children. I don't think, unless you're a sociopath, I don't think anybody would disagree with that, right? Can we, the three of us, agree, right? Yeah. That we want people to be happy, healthy, and safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so I'm willing 100% to believe that our current legislature, y'all excluded, obviously, but that our current legislature has the best interest of Vermonters in mind when they're doing this stuff, right? Because you think, oh my God, there's a lack of early childhood education. There's a lack of child care. Single moms can't go, make money, take care of their kids, and that's a problem. We all agree that's really bad, right? We don't want that. So then they just go and they write a bill that says we're going to fix it with no consideration for what it costs, or even if the bill that they're writing is going to solve the problem that they're aiming to solve. And so I just go, okay, so I'm willing to believe that that is so. So where is this disconnect from what is actually achievable and reasonable? What is the role of the state to do? And what I can't even formulate a question.
I think that the mentality is that the government, the state, fixes things, and they can't ever fix families. They can't fix a broken home, or the fact that it's costing more and more to live here. They just keep digging that pit bigger and keep throwing some money in it, and the issues, the solutions aren't dealt with.
Well, and that's what, does anybody ever go back? I love the studies. If I hear one of you mention that there's a study out of this one more time, I'm just going to like poke myself in the eye. I love it. We're going to spend millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars for a study to tell us something. Do they ever commission a study to see if the decision that they made was actually good and actually got the result that they thought they were going to get?
Well, what's the thing called, Mark, for a while, accountable, trying to look at all our programs and see if it's accountable. Remember we were supposed to be looking, did it really work or not? I'm not sure how much we have followed through on that. Do you know, Mark?
I don't either. I know we were supposed to, but just we get so wrapped up in the next round of bills that I don't know as though that ever really is looked at. We have a joint fiscal office note for each bill, or we're supposed to, that says what it's going to cost. But again, whether it comes back around a year later saying, oh yeah, this is actually what it costs, it doesn't always happen.
See, I just out of curiosity, if either of you know, I know last legislative session, there were 1,400 bills introduced. And I was like, how is anybody, first of all, how are y'all supposed to keep up with that? And how are we as the citizens supposed to keep up with that? Do you know how many bills were introduced this year?
Well,
just out of curiosity?
I know already it's over 500, I believe, in the House. Yeah. And that was actually early on. So I don't know what it's up to now.
It's probably grown. I wonder what would happen if for just like one legislative season, right? So that's 2 years, right? What if for just one legislative season, no bills were introduced and all you guys did was study whether or not any of the stuff, I almost swore, any of the stuff that has been passed is actually working?
Well, I believe it's North Dakota meets every other year. There's the ability to do that. So this is probably 4 years ago I introduced a bill, because there's 13 other states that limit the number of bills that a representative or that a legislator can propose.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't limit you, because I could, if I had my 3, I could say, hey, Vicki, would you sponsor this bill? But anyway, it's a way to slow it down. But I was told that by the speaker at the time that that's a First Amendment right issue, and we shouldn't be able to do that. But I think that would really
prioritize.
I'm sorry?
Prioritizing is against the First Amendment. Didn't know that.
Right. I mean, if you really have enough ideas, or a lot of people say that their constituents requested it, you really need to pick what you think is the most important bill and go for that. But and again, so we have 500. They're all scattered all over all these committees. But the Speaker of the House, the leadership, is the one that determines which ones get taken up. So all those others, It's just not going to happen anyway.
That's interesting. So, okay, my brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. I find it so fascinating because Texas is like that too, where they only meet every 2 years. And I remember originally thinking, well, how do they get anything done? And I asked, I worked for this organization that had a legislative branch or a lobbying arm, essentially. And I asked, I was like, well, how do y'all get anything done? And they said, well, that's the point, is we don't. Or we only get done the things that are the most important. And I just remember being like, well, that's dumb. And he was like, no, this means that only the things that are really a priority get discussed and get moved through. And that way we're not dealing with the passions of the moment. So, you know, you're not dealing with mob rule basically in your legislature. You're actually trying to legislate things that matter and really affect Texans. And also, you know, semicolon, and the way government is constructed is meant to slow things down on purpose. It's meant, like people complain about the gridlock in Washington. No, gridlock is written into the system intentionally so that we don't see what we have going on today. You know, we're not supposed to have a dictator that can just, oh, I just want to do this. Here we go. There you go. Now, executive order. Like, you're not supposed to be able to do that. You're not supposed to be able to legislate from the Supreme Court. You know, but that's what the legislature is for. So gridlock was actually written into the system. And when you make decisions to bypass that, we end up having conversations about stuff like we are now.
Well, you probably heard, you know, that President Biden now is wanting to do away with the filibuster, where they had him, you know, on camera years back as a senator saying that, oh no, you know, the filibuster is for, you know, supported for the minority and to slow things down. And yeah, so.
Well, and it's like we had, I during the election last year, I was on a candidate forum, and some current representatives or then current, and then candidates were talking about how great it was that the progressive and Democrat, my friend calls them Dem-prograts. And I was like, oh, that's good. How they were glad that they had a super majority, a veto-proof super majority, and how great that was. And how, well, you want the governor to come along, but if he's not going to cooperate, well, then we just need to steamroll him. And it's like, and I said to them on camera in front of people in this candidate forum when we were waiting to get started, I said, well, I find that really interesting because the governor, while I disagree with him on many things, is the only person who's elected by the entire state of Vermont. So Chittenden County, being wildly overrepresented, has the ability to run roughshod over the rest of the state. And then the governor is the last fail-safe to prevent mob rule. And you guys are all saying that that's a problem for you.
Right.
So you're not into separation of powers and protecting democracy like you say you are. Oh, well, that's not what I said. And it's like, no, that is literally what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Okay. So, there's so much. I feel like I'm going off about how crazy our legislature is, but I guess that was sort of half the point. What other stuff? So we've got infrastructure, supposedly childcare, broadband. What are some of the other big things that you think are kind of egregious that they're planning to spend this American Rescue Plan Act money on? Is there anything that so far that you've heard that you just thought, oh my God, that is like the worst idea ever?
Well, we have a human services budget that's very large compared to a lot of the rest of the budget. And what was it about diapers, Mark? It's like we're giving subsidies for diapers, and I just kind of like, could we, like you said, Erica, can we afford to live here to begin with? And then we don't have to live on so many grants and subsidies and programs. The state is very much program oriented. And so pretty much in committee, I just hear about a lot of the programs we have, and that they're the things they do good work. They do. I must say they do. But we do have to fund them. And then what about the private sector? They're the ones that should be boosting up our economy. They're the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So overall, we keep giving money to programs and boosting them. And
So I want to know, I don't know if either of you can answer this question. For every dollar that goes to a program that, say, gives diapers, how much of that is administrative costs? So if people don't know, Vermont, the state of Vermont, is the largest employer in the state.
Mhm.
And they are also the largest consumer of our tax dollars and the economy. So basically, the state is just turning into this behemoth.
Well,
So
I think that the other thing about that, Erica, is, and I was just thinking of this today, we're creating more government jobs pretty much every year, aren't we, Mark? Or filling them.
yeah,
In the sense of these salaries, and I don't begrudge people to make a living, but we're talking a lot of times about almost six figures, excuse me, and benefits. And my farmers in my committee come in and say, we're not making a living for ourselves. They don't even take a salary or a payment. They're just trying to keep their doors open and their milk shipped or whatever kind of farming they're doing.
right.
So we see this bigger gap between the working folks who are self-employed, a lot of self-employed, small businesses.
Yeah, we
And
have one of
then,
the highest rates of entrepreneurship in the country.
yeah, and that's
Keep going.
awesome.
Yeah.
But then we have this government job sector that they're employed to monitor us or implement programs, and they make a good living at it. And
Yeah.
I don't I'm glad they can do that, but we keep building that, and yet, like you said, our taxpayer base, 600,000 people or so, are paying for the government jobs.
Well, and I figured it out a little while ago. I don't remember the exact dollar or the exact numbers, but I looked at the demographic information of Vermont, and I looked at, okay, so there's like 650,000 people who live here. How many of those people are actually of working age? And it was only something like 200,000 or 300,000 people at best between the ages of 18 and 65 or 70. I don't remember which one I picked. So more than half don't work. More than half of Vermonters are not of working age. So either they're children or they're, elderly or retirement age. And so you have less than half of the population producing anything. And who knows, that wasn't even like, oh, let's subtract people who are not working, like folks on disability and things like that. I didn't even go that deep. Less than half are actually producing anything that can create money for us to live off of. And then when you figure that Vermont is the largest employer and therefore sucking up the most amount of our tax dollars, like salaries and wages and benefits to state employees is more than we're spending on other areas where things are actually needed. And you're sweet, Vicki. You're nice. You said I don't begrudge them making a living. I absolutely begrudge them.
Okay.
Because bureaucracy eats up any of the benefit that is derived from that money that you're taking out of our communities. So you're taking money out of our communities and putting it into this state behemoth bureaucracy. And then only pennies on the dollar actually end up going back out into the community to do what it is you say that you want to do. What if all those people had jobs working at businesses that could afford to survive in Vermont?
Well, Erica, to go along with that, in that OPR bill about general contractors, there was $200,000 to kick the OPR along for needed employees. Supposedly, it's going to, as it gets going, the fees are going to pay for that. But then there was the rental registry. that's being considered. There was what, Vicki, at least two new folks that were going to be needed to be hired for that. There's a Secretary of State's office needed more people because of, the campaign issues around voter, mail out ballots to all voters. And so they needed another individual in the elections division. And you're right, just goes on and on and on. So, a lot of these ideas, whether it's, the rental registry, the mail out ballots to all registered voters, it all sounds great, but there's a cost that comes with it for sure.
Well, and that's so fun. My husband worked at the OAG's office here, the Office of the Attorney General in the Child Support Division. This was many years ago. And he made $15 an hour. And I don't even think he got health insurance or anything. Oh my God. Anyway, okay, I'm digressing. Okay, so what else? So we're coming around the time where we'll probably start wrapping it up here, but I want to make sure that if there's anything else that you can think of that's super important that people reach out about, or anything else that they should know that you think that you want to share with our viewers.
Well, I'm just going to go back to the whole issue of, because of COVID, I feel the government might use that excuse to continue to control us too much.
Yes.
And whether it's mask mandates, I mean, where does it end? Where someone gets vaccinated, they test negative, and they still have to wear a mask in public? I'm just kind of like, hello, people, where are we going with this? When is it going to stop? When can we just take a look back and say, well, how many people actually have had COVID? What's going on? It doesn't all add up. To be called a pandemic when we've had loss for sure, but these folks are elderly for the most part, or have health issues on top of that. And we're making children wear masks in schools, and then now suddenly doubling down on their vaccination records and such. Children don't have hardly any complications from COVID. And so why are we putting our society through this? And I just feel very strongly that we have to exercise our rights, or we have no rights.
Oh, girl, preach.
So we have to stand up and say, look, no, my child is not wearing a mask for 6 hours. She's never had COVID. We have no COVID in our home. And if you can't deal with that as a public school, then we'll homeschool or put them in a private school. Yep. We're going to see more of that happening. We've already seen independent schools rise. We've seen a lot of homeschooling rise. Parents just want control of their children and their children's health and their own health. So I think it's time for us to really think through, what is this, quote, pandemic? When will we stand up and say, okay, it's enough? We have some people getting immunized. That's their choice. But my choice is a different choice. And I'm not going to be discriminated against for that. And so that's the issue I think we're facing now as a state more than ever, to just say, I want my rights. I'm going to exercise those rights. Yep. And we're going to see where the chips fall from that.
Yep. Vicki, would you tell everyone what is a good email to reach you at if they have any questions or like that? Whatever contact information you're comfortable sharing.
Sure. I would say just Victoria Strong. That's my name, Victoria Strong, all lowercase, at juno.com. That's JUNO.com.
Okay, Victoria Strong at juno.com. Okay, excellent. Yeah. All right. How about you, Representative Higley? Mark,
probably for me, the best would be my legislative email. So that's my first initial, M, Higley, Higley, at leg.state.vt.us.
.state.vt.us.
Right. And just so folks know, that's how you can get a hold of any of your legislators.
Yep. First initial, last name.
Yep.
Excellent. Any other things that you want to share with our listeners about any particular bills that you're worried about or anything that you think people should be on the lookout for?
No, just, I agree with Vicki for sure. We've got to get past this. I hate that term, the new normal, because to me, I've even heard it some in the legislature. I know there was a particular senator that talked about, oh, well, going forward, we may be still doing some Zooming. I want to see it on YouTube. And yeah, to me, and then again, just I'm concerned that people are going to get comfortable with all this money coming in and being handed out. And granted, there's a lot of people that need it. I don't begrudge them at all, but you're hearing from businesses across the state that are having a hard time hiring folks. I mean, I just lost my garbage man because they can't find another driver for this route. I mean, it's happening all over the state.
Yeah. Well, and that's what people don't realize. We rent to traveling nurses, and we've had many of them look into working at the hospital in Burlington, and then they back out of their contracts when they see how high the cost of living is. So the higher the cost of living, the less people are willing to live here. And I really see what is happening is, we've talked a couple times about the disconnect between rural and urban, right? So you've got the urban folks who are primarily wealthy, especially in Chittenden County. You have tons of people who are not from Vermont, who've moved here, who have moved from a city to a small city, but they don't realize what it's like for working class people to survive. We have this class of wealthy elite who, as long as there is an underclass who will serve them, they'll be fine, right? So as long as there's somebody to mow their lawn and take care of their kids and serve them food, it's like, we're fine. We've got this permanent class, underclass that will serve us and will take care of them. And we're just rich over here and we're fine. And I see that in so many other places like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Austin, Texas, where you're continuing to create laws and legislation that make it more and more expensive to live there so that only wealthy people can live there. And then you have to create subsidized affordable housing for the poor people who serve you. And the fact that they don't understand that that's what's happening is really just beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And it is my prayer for Vermont that not happen. So I will say again, if anybody out there who's interested in running for anything, select board, school board, city council, whatever it is, reach out to me here. You can message me on Facebook, YouTube. You can reach me at ericareddick@gmail.com. You can, I don't have my cell phone listed because people are crazy, but you can email me for sure. And you can message me on any of these social media platforms, and we will help you get started in your walk and in your campaign. We will get you some assistance. We will get you some encouragement. You said, I can't remember which of you said it. Maybe it was both of you. We have to stand up for our rights. No, do not wait and expect someone else to stand up for you. It's your job.
That's
you,
right.
yes, you, all of you out there that I'm pointing at in my camera, all of you. Oh, good Lord. Okay. So really quick before we go, I'm really excited. I probably should have done this at the beginning of the show or in the middle, but this is me practicing. So we're officially taking sponsors of the show. And I've gotten tons of compliments and questions about the jewelry that I'm often wearing on the show. So like today, I'm wearing this necklace that is handmade, hand beaded. It's a little tree. You guys probably can't see it. And if I get close, it's going to be blurry, but it is a tree. And this in particular was made particularly for me with aquamarine, which is my birthday. And they're all done by Shannon Bundy. Her company is called Perihelion, and I probably said that wrong. Shannon, don't be mad at me. Okay, I'm going to do this, everybody. Hold on. So my sponsor this week, Perihelion Design, she makes custom crafted jewelry, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and stuff like that. She has all this really cool, fun stuff. You can get custom orders. Like mine was a custom piece with my birthstone. Let's see. So you can see these are some of the similar necklaces like I'm wearing. Come on. Okay. So really, really pretty stuff. Like, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. That's one piece. Oops.
Ooh,
I know, right?
that's cool.
And then she'll make earrings that match. And look at that price. $45.
Ooh.
I already told her she doesn't charge enough. She doesn't listen to me. I'm like, you don't charge enough for this stuff. It's really pretty. So you can perihelionvt.com. I will post the link in the description. But a lot of people have asked, like, I have another piece that's it's a really big, like, orange flower with a multi-strand that I wear a lot. I got that from her as well. She just makes really pretty stuff. And it's really super fun. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, autumn days. Look
Wow.
at that. I know. Ooh, and look at how cool the clasp is.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I'm totally nerding out right now. Okay. So perihelionvt.com. I'm going to post the link and information in the description. I'm also going to add y'all's Representative Higley and Representative Strong's email addresses so that it can be easy for you guys to reach out. Do not hesitate to ask questions. Reach out to your legislators. Call them, email them, email them. They cannot ignore us if everyone participates. It's really easy to let apathy and despair keep you from participating in self-governance. And I just cannot stress enough how important it is that we continue to stay engaged. So thank you, Representative Higley. Thank you, Representative Strong, for being with us today. Feel free to reach out and keep us informed if anything is coming up. We can just do quick little live streams or quick little videos. It doesn't have to be this long formal thing like we did today. So if there's anything coming up that you're like, oh my God, Erica's viewers have to hear this, or Vermonters absolutely need to know this is going on, let me know and I can share it and we can share it.
Thanks, Erica.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
great.
you. Okay, hold on with me 1 second while I end the live stream. Okay, hold on.